Thank you. So before we start, I would like to introduce our speaker, John from Singapore. Thank you very much for joining us in this IDEC conference. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation to give a talk. So John Tan is an educator, founder of Saturday Kids, CEO of Doyobi, tech investor, and he is a tech investor. Having witnessed the possibilities technology affords, John decided kids shouldn't wait till college to learn to code. That's when he founded Saturday Kids in 2012. What started as a coding school for kids eventually evolved into a curiosity school whose mission is to inspire every child to be curious, self-directed learner. In 2020, John founded Doyobi, an edtech startup that helps kids become original thinkers and develop a sense of purpose. Saturday Kids run Code in the Community, a Google and government-supported initiative that is the largest free coding program in Singapore. He is also an investor in tech startups, in particular startups reimagining the future of work and education such as Padlet, Galileo and Beanstalk. John is also an Obama Foundation Asia Pacific leader. So today, John is going to give a talk on learning through creation and play. We welcome John to the wonderful talk that he is going to give. Thank you very much. John, now you can start. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to me speak. I'll keep this relatively short, and I'll just briefly introduce myself. Sorry, let me try to move the screen. So today I want to talk about learning through creation and play. That's the topic that I want to share with you. Just a little bit about me. So I have 5 kids, and 2 of my kids are semi-homeschooled now. So they attend an online school for homeschoolers and unschoolers called Galileo, and they still go to public school. But my eldest, his name is Kemper. He's the one in the middle in the green t-shirt. He has asked for us to withdraw him from mainstream school starting next year. So next year he will be attending just Galileo, which is an online school for homeschoolers, unschoolers, and world schoolers. And I can completely understand why he would choose Galileo over mainstream education, because at Galileo, he gets to decide what he wants to learn and how he wants to learn. So what Galileo does is the learning instructor works with every child to come up with a personalized learning plan, and the child can, pick Spanish, science, math, Japanese, and the learning instructor would point the child to the best resources on the web to learn those subjects. And there are a bunch of clubs that Galileo runs every day. So there's a science club, there is a how to run a Kickstarter project, nano degree, there is Japanese club, Spanish club. So since joining Galileo, my kids, Camper and Summer, they have started learning Japanese, Spanish, 3D modeling, all of these things that they wouldn't have been able to learn in mainstream education. So I started Saturday Kids in 2012 as a coding school for kids. And the goal really is to get kids to start to create with technology rather than just consume content on mobile phones and devices. But along the way, I kind of realized that actually what is more important than teaching kids the technical skills is to inspire the curiosity in them and to get them to learn how to learn. That's such an important aspect of learning, to understand how you learn and what's the best way for you to develop yourself. Um, so at Saturday Kids, I like to tell people we are a curiosity school for kids, because for me, teaching kids coding is just a means to an end, and the end goal really is to inspire that curiosity in kids. So we are probably the only coding school in the world that also runs an outdoor camp. Um, so last summer, we actually brought 25 kids from Singapore to Karizawa, Japan for a 3-day outdoor camp in the woods. And the idea behind that is there's so much that kids can learn from nature, and being in Singapore, there's just very little opportunities for them to do that. So now I think there are a couple of forest schools in Singapore, and they are becoming more popular. So the point being that there are so many ways to inspire curiosity in kids, and it's just not something that happens naturally in mainstream schools, because there's so much focus on standardized assessment and testing. So the idea behind Doyobi is it's a spin-off from Saturday Kids, because I realized that with Saturday Kids, what we do is so offline, it's very hard to scale the impact um, of inspiring kids to be curious, self-directed learners. So Doyobi is a way for me to scale the impact by working with educators and with schools. So at Saturday Kids, we work directly with parents and with kids. And at Doyobi, we actually digitize the curriculum that Saturday Kids has developed over the years. And then we work with educators to allow any teacher to teach science and coding in a fun and engaging way. So that's just a little bit about Saturday Kids and Doyobi and the work that I do. Um, I'm a Obama Foundation leader. So last year, in December, we had a convening of 200 leaders from all over Asia Pacific. Not everybody works in the education field, but everybody there is a change maker. And we are there because there's a cause that we are really passionate about, whether that be environmental issues or equality issues, healthcare. Obviously, education is a big one, so there are quite a number of us working in education. The Transcend Fellowship is a fellowship for young people reimagining the future of work and education. So I applied for the fellowship, and in fact, it's actually starting this week. So the idea is to create a network of people who are actively working to change the future of work and learning. And I'm really excited to be part of that network. And I think most people here would know about Ashoka. So I just went through a change-making program with Ashoka. So the topic of today, why we should get kids to play more, is simply because kids are natural learners, and they learn through play. It's such an important aspect of how they learn, and we don't have to teach kids how to play. It comes naturally to them, right? So like, as I was saying, playing really helps kids to learn. And what I've seen in Singapore, where there is a lot of emphasis on grades and how well kids do in school, is that the time that kids have to play is limited, because so many kids have to go for after school academic help or enrichment activities that are not designed for kids to learn how to play. It's really focused on basically exam techniques, right? So that's really why Saturday Kids exist. And unfortunately, we are one of very few enrichment centers to take to have an emphasis on play-based learning. I think with the forest schools, that's really an interesting evolution, and it's great to see more forest schools popping up, because I think that's also really a learning philosophy and pedagogy that is rooted in getting kids to explore, to be curious, and to play. So as I was saying, all kids are born, they know how to play, but it's us adults who really take that ability away from them, because there's so much focus and emphasis on standardized testing. So what I've also seen is so many adults, parents, we try to control how kids learn, but actually sometimes the best way to learn is through unstructured play. But there's this mentality that if the child is sitting idle at home, it's a waste of time, right? So kids have very, very packed schedules, and they don't have opportunities to learn in an unstructured environment. And that's something that we try to provide at Saturday Kids. And Singapore is obviously very well known for topping PISA rankings every year. And we do really well with standardized testing. But I think that comes at the cost of creativity and curiosity. So I would say as a nation, we are great at finding the answers if the answers are known, but we are not great at inventing the solutions if there isn't one. So my hope with Saturday Kids and with Doyobi is really to get kids to become original thinkers. I think the world needs more mavericks. Singapore needs more mavericks, and there's just not enough avenues for kids in Singapore. And I think it's not limited to our nation, but around the world for kids to have that channel to discover things for themselves, right? And to remain curious. So I think the tuition and after school help industry really is what we are up against, because it's a huge industry in a very small country like Singapore. Initially, the idea behind tuition is that kids who are lagging behind in school can get academic help from other centers outside of school. But then what ended up happening is that practically every parent sends the child to a tuition center to try to get ahead, right? So it's a vicious cycle. Everybody wants to get ahead. And when I see some kids at some of the centers where we are at, because there are a lot of tuition centers around us, on a Saturday or Sunday, they look absolutely miserable. So I question what is the value of getting kids to be that little bit better at math or science, or to earn that extra few points in an exam. That it comes at a cost, and that cost is that unstructured playtime. So instead of tuition, what we have opted for are the 4 Ps: projects, passion, play, and peers. And that didn't come from me. That came from Mitch Resnick from MIT Media Lab. So Mitch is well known as the creator of Scratch. And play is just, I guess, one aspect of the 4 Ps. But I think it's at the heart of what Scratch is about. It's about getting kids to figure out what they are passionate about, right? And that's again something that schools don't do. In a mainstream school, very few teachers actually ask a child, what is it you're passionate about? What are your interests? What do you want to learn? Because there are kids in a classroom, and there's just very little time for the teacher to work with kids individually. The other thing is that so much of learning in mainstream education is still passive. It's still listening to the teacher speak, in front of the classroom, chalk and talk, as they like to call it, right? And what we've found at Saturday Kids is that there's a much better way to learn, which is to get kids to build projects, right? Through that process of building projects, they are discovering things for themselves. They are discovering how they learn. They're discovering what they are interested in. They are, creating something from scratch for the first time. All of these are important elements of learning, and so much of learning comes through social interaction, right? But as you can imagine, if you are sitting in a classroom listening to the teacher talk for 45 minutes, there's very little social interaction with your peers. So that's again something that Scratch or coding classes or robotic classes lend themselves to, which is the ability for kids to learn together. So these are all the core ideas of creative learning. So as I was saying, play teaches kids how to learn, and that's what they need to get creative to take on an unpredictable future. So children learn as they play. I think this is a great quote. And most importantly, in play, children learn how to learn, which is what I was saying right at the start of my talk, that it's so important for kids to understand how to learn and how they learn themselves, right? So every child learns in a different way. Some kids like to read, some kids are more visual learners. So figuring out from a young age what is the learning style that suits you best greatly enhances a child's ability to learn. But again, it's not something that mainstream schools necessarily provide. And this is another well-known quote by Einstein, that play is the highest form of research. So it's unfortunate that in some cultures, especially Asian cultures, play is misunderstood. It's deemed as a waste of time. And what we're really trying to do at Saturday Kids and Doyobi as well is to reintroduce this idea that kids can learn through play, and that with more experimentation, more opportunities to create, kids become better learners. So what does this actually look like? So at Saturday Kids, we have a theme, we have a tagline, which is play for the future. And it's really using play as the means to give kids the ability to create solutions that can help them change their world. Again, I would like to, I guess, share that it may seem obvious, but in a country like Singapore, it really isn't that common for kids to have that channel or their outlet to be creative and to build things and think about what are some of the problems the world is facing and how they can play a part in solving these problems. One of the great things about calling ourselves Saturday Kids is that I think Saturday lends itself to this idea that it's fun, it's a free day, it's not a school day, and so we want the kids who come to us to feel like every day is a Saturday. Every day there are opportunities for them to learn through play, to learn through an unstructured environment. With Doyobi, what we've done is we looked at how science is taught in school, and we asked ourselves, is there a better way or a more engaging way for kids to learn science topics like marine life or like migrating birds. So what we've done is we've created a series of projects. Each project has 3 segments. So the first segment is to show kids a phenomenon, right? So there's this pedagogy called phenomenon-based learning, and the idea is to show kids a phenomenon and get them to ask questions. So that inspires the curiosity. And then we get the kids to build scratch projects that are related to the science that they just saw in that phenomenon. And through the process of building that scratch project, they are internalizing the science that they just witnessed. And then finally, we try to bring in real world applications and real world problems, and get kids to understand that there's so many issues in the world right now, and there's so much they can do, but very few adults ask kids, what can you do to solve climate change? What can you do to solve inequality? So the idea is really to get kids to understand that all these SDGs is not going to be solved by our generation, right? They have to play a big part in solving these issues, and why not start today? So in conclusion, we really look up to other organizations who have been doing this for years, much longer than we have. So for example, Arki is an architecture school for kids in Finland. I visited them in January this year, before the COVID outbreak. And it's really inspiring to see kids, building with their hands and learning through like creating their own structures. So again, it's really, I guess what it boils down to is the fact that kids, if given the opportunities to create, there's so much, their imagination is boundless, right? And we just need to give them those channels to create. Another one is Playum, which is based in Singapore, and their mission is to allow children to use play and the arts as a way to experience the world. So that's it. That's really all I have to share. A little bit about Saturday Kids and Doyobi. Saturday Kids, we work with learners, and we use the power of coding to get kids to build a better future. And with Doyobi, we provide the courseware and the platform so kids can become original thinkers with a sense of purpose. And that's all I have to share. So I'm happy to take any questions, or we just open it up, right? And let's just have a casual conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody wants to ask questions or make any comments, please, you feel free.
Hi, this is Fiona. I love everything I heard. I love all the ideas. I tried some coding in Boston with inner city kids. All the things you said, it was fantastic. My problem was funding. And it cost me $7,000 just to get one kit to do some first Lego robotics. And it was difficult for me to do in the city with space and things. So I don't know, it's the funding thing for the materials that's so big. And I guess there's no question there, but I'm inspired by what you're doing.
Well, so I can share more about the program that we run with the support of Google and the Singapore government. It's called Code in the Community. We've been running that program for 4 years now. So Google actually approached us with the idea that they wanted to let disadvantaged families in Singapore have access to coding classes. So this was back in 2016, 2017.
Mhm.
So we started with just Scratch, which is block-based programming
Free.
for
Yeah.
the younger kids. It's entirely free, and for the older kids, we use Python. So we kind of navigated the hardware issues by not having hardware at all,
Yeah.
and that made it a lot easier to implement the program. But then what ended up happening is after 16 hours of Scratch or Python, most of the kids, they want more, but the program has only one level, so there wasn't much more we could offer them. So beginning this year, we created a second level for the kids. So the younger kids, after they finish Scratch, they can go to a level 2 course that uses strawbees. So I'm not sure if you have seen strawbees. They're these plastic straws with connectors, and they have a block-based sort of programming interface as well. So basically kids can create, for example, a robot, right? And they can do a
Oh.
robot race by programming the servo motors and sensors and whatnot. So it's more hands-on, it's more interactive.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's harder to implement, because of the logistics of having to deal with hardware. But with the
Yeah.
support of Google and the Singapore government, we're able to do that. So going back to your point about funding, we've received corporate funding from Google. We have also received funding from the charity arm of Google, which is google.org. We have received funding from government agencies like the Singapore government, and we've worked with agencies like USAID. So USAID is very supportive of projects like these in developing countries. So last year we actually spent an entire year in Cambodia running Scratch programs for public school children in Cambodia. So I think as Saturday Kids evolves, what we really want to do is to have more of these impact programs. And again, funding is still an issue for us. So we actively reach out to funders, whether they are corporates or government.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, I have a question.
Yeah.
As I've understood, Saturday Kids, is it like a physical kind of learning space, or is it an online learning space? I think it's physical. And how do you, if it's physical, do you have international branches or international organization working or trained teachers and guides working elsewhere apart from Singapore?
Yeah, so we have 2 locations in Singapore, and we have an office in Tokyo. So we've been in Japan for about 2 years now. The last 2 years, we've been mostly working with schools. So our instructors would go into schools in Tokyo to deliver our programs, and we will also run camps in co-working spaces. So we just rent, a room to run a 3-day camp. I'm actually in the process of signing a lease in Tokyo so that we'll have our first permanent location in Japan. With Code in the Community, the way we do it is we work with the public libraries and the community centers around Singapore. And there's the idea behind calling it Code in the Community. So we go to the community rather than making them come to us. So every run of Code in the Community, we would have maybe between 10 to 15 locations, and each location would have 2 to 3 classrooms, and the kids would come in on a weekend. So one thing I didn't mention, and I should have mentioned earlier, is that Code in the Community is entirely taught by volunteers. We don't do any of the teaching ourselves. So the way we run Code in the Community is that we recruit a large number of volunteers, and we train them to be volunteer instructors in the classroom. Most of these volunteers have no teaching experience. So the first thing we need to do is to just kind of put them through like teaching 101, right? How do you manage a group of kids in the classroom? And a lot of these volunteers find teaching a really enriching experience, because I think the best form of teaching is two-way. So it's not, you know, a sage on stage imparting knowledge to the kids, right? It's bi-directional. So the instructor is also learning from the kids. And I think that's something that we really want to do with Doyobi, which is to get teachers to get in that mindset that they don't have to know everything, and get teachers to be comfortable there to tell their students that, you know, she's there to learn with them and they are learning together, and there's no expectation that, you know, the teacher has the answer to everything. But it takes, I guess, a little bit of getting used to, because I guess traditionally the teacher is always viewed as, you know, somebody who has all the answers, and teachers are generally quite uncomfortable with having to find out, you know, answers in the classroom with the kids. And that's something that we really try to help the teachers with, because one of the biggest challenges with teaching coding is that there are just not enough teachers with technical background. So in Southeast Asian countries like Thailand, Cambodia, a lot of these governments have caught on to the fact that, you know, STEM education it's really popular. It's a good way for kids to learn, and they have started introducing coding to the curriculum. And the biggest challenge they face is they don't have enough teachers. So for example, in Thailand, the government actually replaced home economics period with coding. So they swapped out home economics for coding, but then the teacher is the same. So how do you turn a home economics teacher into a coding instructor, right? And that's what we're trying to do with Doyobi. So we take the instructional delivery burden away from the teachers. So the instruction is delivered via the platform, and the teacher is really in the classroom, whether in a physical classroom or virtual classroom, to support the learners.
Very interesting, because we have been working here in Kathmandu. We have been working with students, 200 and more than 200 students coming across Nepal. So, I mean, I was wondering like how we could implement that or translate what you are doing in Singapore here in Kathmandu and in this region, you know, like Bhutan, Bangladesh, and India, and so on, because we lack really that the creative way of teaching coding to young students. In Nepal, coding happens, probably they learn coding in the college, but that's also like not really coding on the computers, in the computers, you know. They learn like they just learn to write the codes to finish their exams, and by the end of their course they have done the coding course, but they are not able to implement or do anything out of that learning, you know. So how can we translate what you are doing in Singapore, probably in the context of Nepal and India? Do you have like virtual training course for the teachers, young teachers, those who are willing to, you know, volunteer? Because we've got a lot of young boys and girls who like to actually volunteer, and you know, so can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, so what we're doing right now is we are digitizing the curriculum that we use with Code in the Community, and we're putting it on the Doyobi platform so that it's easy for any teacher with or without technical background to deliver the program. There's still a little bit of training needed for the teachers to understand how to use the platform and to have some, you know, basic level of I guess block-based programming skills so that they can actually troubleshoot for the kids in the classroom. But the basic idea is that we want to make the curriculum a lot more accessible to anybody in the world. So right now, Doyobi, we have teachers in Brazil, in India, in Philippines using our curriculum. And actually, the Philippines teachers, that's really an interesting story because these are swim coaches. So we are working with a swim school in the Philippines. And the reason we are working with them is because the country has been locked down for months. And obviously none of these swim coaches can teach swimming. So we've basically, taken on a group of swim coaches who have no technical background and kind of turn them into coding instructors through that platform. The challenge, as I see it, is devices and broadband connectivity. I would love to, find ways to make our platform work in a low bandwidth environment, and maybe, using smartphones or tablets rather than computers and laptops. But right now, I think that is the biggest constraint, the access to connectivity and devices.
Surely, yeah, John.
I was going to say, I think there are a number of aid agencies like USAID that are supporting programs in South Asia. So if there's a way to unlock some of that funding, I think there's a lot that can be done.
Sure. I'll get back to you regarding this because we also have a lot of interest in this, and we want to extend our education into real coding at an early age, incorporating that play-like learning,
Yeah.
So
I think that's really the key, which is that the kids don't feel like they are learning programming. They feel like
yes.
they are building a game or an animation or telling a story that they can share with their friends, and that is really that learning through creating process.
I think I would just like to add one more remark, like in terms of technological development, country like Nepal is really lagging behind because we are not giving the right instruments, right way of making making the young students learn coding, So without that, it's impossible, at this 21st century, we cannot really put aside the importance of coding and these aspects,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions? I think we don't have any questions, John.
Yeah.
As you have suggested that your talk was going to be quite short, and it was short and sweet, and I think we can do a lot actually here in the Indian subcontinent and extend what you are doing here.
I would love to bring what we're doing at Saturday Kids and Doyobi to the Indian subcontinent. Actually, one of the things that I'm doing at the Obama Foundation is that we currently have leaders in Asia Pacific and 2 cohorts of leaders in Africa. And a lot of these leaders are working in education. So I'm trying to connect the dots, in terms of what the various leaders are doing in education and trying to find ways where we can support each other. And I suspect that the same leadership program will eventually be run in South Asia as well. So when we did the first cohort of Asia Pacific leaders, I think South Asia was excluded because it's such a big population that perhaps there would be an opportunity to have a cohort of Obama leaders just for the Indian subcontinent alone.
Yeah, sure. We have a question from CMAC. The participant is asking if you could speak about the greatest challenges as a social entrepreneur. What are the challenges that you are facing,
Yeah, So, I guess a lot of social entrepreneurs will touch on the challenges of funding, but I think putting the money question aside, the biggest challenge I face is the difficulties of convincing parents why they should let their kids play, why they should give their kids unstructured playtime, why it's important that kids learn how to create with technology, not just during the school holidays, but also during term time when the kids are busy in school. So the parent education aspect of what we do is the biggest challenge. And as I mentioned earlier, there are not many organizations like Saturday Kids and Doyobi in Singapore. So we are almost a solitary voice, right? Trying to advocate learning through play. And it's really, really difficult to change parents' mindset. And that's really at the heart of what we're trying to do, is to convince parents that there is a better way for your child to learn. And not only will your child learn better, but your child will also be happier. I think in the in the Asian context, or maybe because Singapore is primarily Chinese population, right? Parents are willing to sacrifice the child's short-term happiness for what they deem to be, long-term success, right? And I just don't think that it's a good trade-off, because what is learning today? Like if it's about knowledge, if it's about acquiring knowledge, it's just a Google search away, right? So what's really important are these human skills that we need to help kids develop. Skills like curiosity, creativity, resilience, communication, collaboration, none of which mainstream schools actively nurture in kids. So if schools are not doing it and parents are busy, with work, and there are also limited opportunities for kids to pick up these skills at home, then where else can they go, right? So I guess my biggest hope is that we can somehow evolve the way mainstream education is run in Singapore and around the world, where there's much more discussion around play-based learning, much more discussion around creative confidence, rather than just standardized testing, which unfortunately is still very much the case today. So I'm not sure if I answered the question around, the challenges of running a social enterprise. I mean, definitely funding is part of it. And the fact that we are not a charity actually makes it a bit harder for some organizations to fund us, because the mandate is that they can only fund a nonprofit or a charity. But the reason why I run Saturday Kids as a social enterprise rather than a nonprofit is that I don't want to be entirely reliant on donor funding, because then that never ends, right? Like in order to keep running our programs, we always have to rely on donations, and that's not a model that I want to use to run my organization.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. And also, I just want to mention also that we have a lot of Indian and participants from Bangladesh and other countries. I think it's too early for them to join the conference. So I'll mention about your work to them during the conference, during other conferences, and I'll refer them about what you are doing, and they can just simply write it to you, because there are a lot of
Thank you.
alternative educators that who would like to really learn how to teach coding in alternative educational setup,
Yeah.
because
And also, please go ahead.
Yeah. Because generally, when they're teaching coding, it looks like you are making the child learn coding. You are forcing a child learn coding. So coding and programming doesn't really get that importance or doesn't get that platform in alternative educational setup. So I think with the kind of work that you are doing, I'm sure even alternative educators or alternative educational institutions can implement or teach coding, create that environment where kids learn coding.
Yeah. Yeah. So like at Galileo, they just started running the one of Doyobi's programs, which is Science with Code. And Galileo actually in many sense operates like a democratic school because the kids are free to choose what club they want to sign up for, what bootcamp they want to sign up for, and what subjects they want to learn. And with Science with Code, almost 1/3 of the school signed up for that program. And I think it's not because so many kids are interested in science or in coding. I think it's the idea that they can actually create with technology, right, and make something that they can share with their friends, whether it's a game or an animation or a visual story. That feeling of being a creator is so empowering, and it's such a shame that we don't give more opportunities for kids to create.
Thank you, John. Thank you. We
Yeah.
have some more questions.
While we're waiting for questions, I think I would like to share a couple of things. So one is that the Transcend Network has a fantastic newsletter on Substack. So I would encourage anybody working in education to subscribe to that newsletter. It's a great resource. And then the second is there is a Finnish nonprofit called 100.org that actually does a lot of work highlighting innovations in education. So again, that is another resource that anybody on this call can tap on.
Can you just send us the link?
Yeah, let me put it in the chat actually.
Yes.
There we go.
Thank you. Yeah, received. There is a question by David, John. He's asking, how do you match the kids' interest with the topic you can offer and do? Are kids free to choose whatever they want? Very often is problem to find kids' interest.
Yeah, so the way we do it at Saturday Kids is we try not to be prescriptive. So, in a coding class, we give the kids room to decide what projects they want to build, right? So we take them through the basics of block-based programming, but we don't tell every child, okay, everybody build a maze game, for example. So there is it's a sandbox environment where within that sandbox, the kids have the autonomy to decide, what is it that they are interested in and build on their interests. So I think that's an important aspect of how we run Saturday Kids. So in the last 3-4 years, coding for kids has become a lot more mainstream, and there are many more coding schools in Singapore now. And I think the biggest difference between how we run our classes at Saturday Kids versus all these other coding schools is really that that freedom that we give the students in our class to decide, what is it that they want to build, and then we support them in building their project rather than showing them, this is the project that everybody should present at the end of the camp, and everybody ends up, building the same thing, because then it's also not engaging for the kids and for the parents when they come for the presentation. Basically every parent will be seeing the same project from every child, which doesn't make sense. So there's a website that I really like called diy.org. That's also a great resource for to allow kids to kind of find their passions and interests. They have thousands of challenges and instructional videos that kids can attempt, right? So it can be related to art or science or outdoor survival skills. So going back to David's question, I think it's really important that we as adults do not dictate to the kids, what their interests are or what they should learn. We should give them that freedom to decide for themselves.
Just a second, let me just check if I have any questions. And John, do you have some kind of a demo on YouTube or elsewhere how the whole Saturday Kids learning space is, or how it happens? The physical space as well as the virtual space. Do you have some kind of a demo?
We have some videos. Let me share that with you after this session. And you, please feel free to share the video with anybody participating in the conference.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we are done with the questions. You can jump in. Anybody who would like to ask questions, please, you can just get into the mic.
Yeah, thanks, Beda. Just I have a single question for him, as he talked about students are given the choice to select the topic, so that are they given that topic to be selected, or are they given any alternative topics in advance so that they can have a select, or what they do? Do they have immediately selection, or you provide the topic in advance so that students can have a good preparation and they come back with that particular topic to be discussed about?
Yeah, so basically, we show them how to use the tools, and then after they learn how to make the sprite move and change the background and stuff like that, it's up to them to decide what topics they want to build the project on. So what we do is sometimes there are children who cannot decide what they want to do. So then we have a few topics that we prepare before the class that we can suggest to the kids who don't know what project to build. So I think that's also an important aspect, that we cannot assume every child knows what he wants to build. So we need to provide that that support to the learners who don't know what they want to build, right? And actually give them some ideas. But by and large, we
great.
just teach them the tools.
That's great, John. And do you have any certain curriculum so that students can have a fixed topic to be selected from them, or can they have a random choice about the selection for the project they want to do?
Well, so we think in terms of learning outcomes, right? So what are the learning outcomes that we want to achieve with a particular course? And as long as the students and the teacher work towards that learning outcome, to us, it doesn't really matter what project the students actually built in order to achieve the learning outcome. So the learning outcomes is more important than focusing on any specific topics.
Yeah, projection can be made, having the discussion among the students themselves as well, and just teacher instructs them how to do and what to do. I think it is really interesting part of the teaching learning activities in the classroom. It's really great. John, thanks.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I think we don't have any more questions, John. So
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to me talk about the work that we do.
thank you, John, and hoping to see you in Kathmandu, Nepal at our organization in 2022 for in-person IDEC, if not before. You
I
are
would love
always
to. I would
welcome
love
here.
to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
All right. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
John, you have to make us the host. Okay.
Your co-host. Yeah. Should I end the meeting now?
You have to make us the host, John, before you leave.
You are co-host now. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Done.
Okay, John. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Just a few announcements to all the participants. I would just like to mention what programs we have this today. This day. Give me a second. So today we have two keynotes. We have a keynote by Christel Hartkamp from Netherlands. She will be talking about beyond childism at 7:45 Nepali time, 7:45 Nepali time. And then another talk that we have for today is by Eunice Oino from Kenya, Nairobi. She will be talking about QR codes, a tool belt for teachers. And there are a lot of open space programs that you can find in our website, on our website, eduforfuture.org. Please do join there. Thank you very much. And if you have anything, just send us an email and we'll try to help you out. Thank you. Bhairavi ma'am, namaste. Surya Narayan ji, namaste. Jerry. Namaste, everyone. Yes, Bhairavi ma'am, how are you doing? Your mic is off.
Veda, namaste.
Yeah. Namaste.
Namaste, namaste.
I'm good.
Thank you for joining us early in the morning. I think you wake
Yeah.
up early in general.
Veda, just for 1 minute, just now I heard John talking. He's running any organization? I just came very late.
Yes, yes. He is founder of online or offline. I think it's a real space, physical space called Saturday Kids.
Okay.
He's the founder of Saturday Kids and also Doyobi programming. Just let me tell you precisely what it is. Let me just go through my. So he is the founder of Saturday Kids and Doyobi.